And we are back on the No Warm-Up podcast. And you guys will notice that the show has increased in its prestigiousness and luxury because Mikey now has gotten himself a chair so he can sit down in the middle of the frame and not sway back and forth. The show is reaching new heights right now. Mikey, how's it feel to sit in a chair?
It's incredible. I will say I'm worried. I like to stand because I need to move around to get blood to my brain for ideas of things to say. You know, because obviously I don't do a lot of prep for the show.
Obviously.
But I do like sitting. I think I'm going to sweat a lot less now that I'm sitting. I'm going to have more endurance.
Okay.
What are you doing, like single leg hamstring curls or something as you stand too, just to get that blood flow going?
Very good. Somebody's been listening.
Nice, Scott.
If I was a college strength coach, we would only do single leg everything. And we'd have no injuries. We'd have no ACLs. Everyone would be so fast, no hamstring pulls. That's my philosophy.
No. We go with the Jesuit high school, Mr. Massey power training workout regimen. Bench press 3 sets of 10, lat pull downs 3 sets of 10, bicep curls 3 sets of 10. Then you're good. That's what we would do. Okay. None of this single leg hamstring nonsense. That's a new record. That was the quickest in a show that what you've brought up, single leg hamstring curls, Mike.
Yep. It's going to be my tombstone.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Let's talk a little sports. Let's talk a little ball. Back to speaking of Jesuit High School and Oregon. This coming out of our least favorite college in the nation, University of Oregon Ducks. This is actually super interesting. Dan Lanning, obviously the Ducks are sitting undefeated right now, number 1 in the country. And Dan Lanning this week started getting a lot of buzz about NFL jobs, NFL teams being interested in Dan Lanning. And he has talked about those rumors and been very adamant that he has no intention of leaving Oregon, that he's super happy there. But I wanted to bring this up because this is a super interesting conversation about coaching in college versus coaching in the NFL that we can go down a little bit. But first of all, Scott, I just want to get your initial thoughts on this for Dan Lanning getting all this NFL buzz.
Yeah, this one doesn't really surprise me all that much. I always get the sense that there's one or two college coaches that always gets this sort of interest, especially when there are so many NFL jobs that are just up in the air, right? We already have the Jets with an interim head coach after they fired Saleh. We already have the Saints in the same situation after they got rid of their head coach 2 weeks ago. But there are definitely other teams that are on the slate for axing their head coach, the Cowboys being one of them.
Yeah.
So it's not really a surprise because Dan Lanning's had an incredible coaching career in the college ranks. I mean, he's gone from a GA at Pittsburgh, worked his way through the Pac-12, or what was formerly known as the Pac-12.
Sensitive subject.
Arizona State, dropped to Sam Houston State for a little bit, but ended up at Alabama too, under Nick Saban, and learned the ropes there before he hopped over to Georgia and then eventually Oregon. So like he's been through some top programs, and you don't really go to those programs and then go further up the ladder unless you are very, very good. So he's done an incredible job at bringing Oregon kind of back to that late 2010s or early 2010s and late 2000s, like top-notch program, right? With Chip Kelly at the helm.
Yep. He's
kind of brought them back to the helm in top ranking here, as we see this past week. But I'm not really surprised with Dan Lanning here being in the conversation. It's just always dangerous to bring a college guy up. And as I've mentioned before this past week in the couple episodes, it's like, is he the guy to mold grown men with salaries higher than his own, with families of their own, responsibilities of their own? Is he able to lead them? So it's always a question mark when you have a young college coach who goes into the NFL, because even the greats like Nick Saban didn't do all that well. So
true. Dude, hold on a second. Did you have Dan Lanning's coaching history memorized, or were you reading that?
I don't reveal my secrets. So
all right. Okay.
Scott he got Neuralink. There's a chip in his neck.
I got Starlink. Scott got Neuralink, so he can have every stop on Dan Lanning's coaching career, every place that he's been for how I was like, that is pretty impressive. All right, way to go. But you touched on it right here. Check out the interesting thing. You touched on Saban right here, just staying on the college coaches. Look at this. So Saban,
yeah.
These guys are all head coaches right now, who were under the Nick Saban coaching tree. 5 of the top ranked 13 teams have former Nick Saban assistant coaches as their head coach. Cignetti, Sark, Cristobal, Kirby Smart, and Dan Lanning. This is super interesting because, and I want to kind of bring this a little bit into the conversation with NFL coaches. When you look at, for example, Bill Belichick, his coaching tree, and the guys that coach under him in the NFL, and they've all gone out to be head coaches, none of them have really had that success when they've gone out to be head coaches. Now you look at Nick Saban's coaching tree here, and I know, granted, it's college versus the NFL, but all of Nick Saban, not all, but many of Nick Saban's former assistant coaches go out on their own to become head coaches and have tons of success. Dude, what do you think this is? Do you think this is just a difference between the college and the NFL game, or is it something with these personalities from Saban and Belichick that enables their assistant coaches to go out on their own and have this type of success?
That's such a good question because it's a multitude of factors, but I think just shooting from the hip here, I get the sense that it is a massive difference between just the leagues, so the NFL and the college realm. So I keep harping back to these are grown men in the NFL that are getting stupid amounts of money to play the game, but they also take it to a level of seriousness that's second to none, right? In the college ranks, you're getting young men who are very malleable, right? And you're there as the leader, as the man that they're looking up to, that they're following because they signed on, if you did a good enough job at recruiting, to your team and to follow you and do all that kind of stuff. And I think there's a weird sort of dynamic here. And this is what my estimation is as to why Saban didn't necessarily perform as well as he did in the NFL, as he did in college, is because he was forged in the college ranks and brought the same, I would say, energy and same sort of approach to the NFL game. And it just didn't jive with the guys and the players in the same way that it does in college. Like, you're able to dictate what young men can and cannot do on a daily basis, down to the minute. We all know this, having experienced college football at high in the Division I level, obviously varying degrees, Mikey, but
number one.
But it's really true, and you guys know this. It's like the college football coach literally can be more of a tyrant, so to speak, than say an NFL head coach. An NFL head coach is like you're having to manage people as opposed to managing the organization. And that's just a different ball game. And I think Saban does an incredible job, clearly, by his record. And I think guys who come out of that tree in the college realm are able to replicate that more easily in the college ranks, because they too are getting malleable young men that want to learn and have signed on to be part of this and will do whatever it takes to get time on the field, earn their mark, and get burned. So it just doesn't translate the same, I don't think, in the NFL and in college.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that right there. And then I think a lot of these guys that coached under Saban have gone out and been like, I don't think that they've tried to be Nick Saban when they go to these other to these other programs. Like, obviously they take some elements of his coaching philosophy and his coaching style. But the thing that strikes me about these five coaches, like, they all seem super authentic, these coaches, when you are like listening to them on the podium. Like Dan Lanning on the podium, this pains me to say because I despise the Oregon Ducks, but I think Dan Lanning is he seems like a good guy and a good coach, and he seems super authentic. And I think also that authenticity really helps in leading these young guys in college. If Dan Lanning were to go, he's 30. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Do you think the age is a factor there?
Dude, I was looking that up today.
Authenticity that he brings?
Yeah, Dan Lanning is 38 years old, which would put him as one of the three youngest coaches in the NFL if he were to go. I think the other one would be Gerard Mayo with the Patriots. Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is 36 or 37. So Dan Lanning at 38 will be right there. There's like, we're seeing really successful young head coaches in the NFL right now. Like, coming to my mind right now, Kevin O'Connell. He's under 40, dude, with the Vikings. He's like 38, 39.
He's 39.
He is 39. Yeah. So like, I think actually with some of these guys, if they're super authentic and they're not trying to be someone that they're not, then I think the age is a benefit. They're closer to age to the players, but I think that the players can really, really sense when a young coach is like not necessarily confident in himself and is not being incredibly authentic. This kind of brings me to the Thursday night football game with the Eagles, because this is kind of how I feel about Nick Sirianni. And push back, Scott, if you feel differently, but I feel like Nick Sirianni is kind of the opposite of some of these younger, authentic coaches. I feel like he is, trying extra hard to be kind of this chirpy guy. He's had some very, very strange press conferences. Like the first press conference that he had as the Eagles head coach was super weird. And he's had all these incidences on the sideline. Even, I got one here I'll pull up of him like jarring with the fans against the Browns a couple of weeks ago. And when you're behaving this way at that age, I think that doesn't really connect so much with the players. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, Sirianni has had his ups and downs over the past year and a half. Even you could include last season. It's been a bit of a roller coaster with him, at least emotionally, and what he puts out there to the people. But at the end of the day, if you look at his record, it's really hard to say, "Hey, man, you gotta hit the road this year," when they're sitting at, what is it now, 8-2 after last night. It's like it's really hard to say he's not deserving of being where he's at just because of that record. But with these antics, like, it's just so strange. He's a guy of emotion. And as far as I understand, he's not directing the offense. He's not directing the defense, which, like, isn't the craziest thing, because Jim Harbaugh doesn't necessarily do that either, but he's a culture builder. And, and I think that's what Sirianni is trying to do here. And, he's always talking about bringing in dog mentality, bringing in dogs to bring about wins and help the organization flourish. But, like, I don't know, sometimes this just looks a little, I don't want to use the word again, but this looks a little childish.
No, you can say it. And say the word.
No, I won't do it.
Sophomoric.
No. It's definitely a little childish at times, but, like, it's hard. Winning cures all, right? That's the mantra, and he's in that situation right now. So
this is good for guys who have really annoying personalities like this coach. He just has to win to cover it up, so he can keep his behavior.
To me,
because once you start losing it wears.
It's terrible. All right, fine. Like, if you behave this way and you're winning, all right, it's fine. It's like, oh, you got a really emotional, passionate coach. But something to me here, like, hey, Dan Campbell is really, really emotional and passionate, and he's vocal. But Dan Campbell screams authentic. To me, Sirianni, I don't know. Do you feel the same way? Does he not feel a little inauthentic to you?
Yeah, he definitely comes across as that a little bit because of him speaking. So when Dan Campbell comes out and talks about this, and he's raw and real and authentic, you can see the emotion coming out of him, and he speaks to the players. He always speaks about the team, always speaks about how hard they're working, how much time they're putting in, how much heart they have, and you can feel that as he's delivering that message, you like sense that oozing out of him. Whereas when Sirianni does it, I mean, he does it in his own bumbling way, similar to how I'm bumbling here, but, like, it doesn't land in the same fashion. You don't get that energy, that feel, because it feels like Dan Campbell, every time he talks, he wants to put the pads back on. He wants to strap up and get out there and play. And you see that even in the Hard Knocks a couple years ago, where he was doing the up downs and everything with the team. He's still doing that. He's working out with him. He's doing all that stuff. Is Coach Sirianni doing that?
No, Coach Sirianni's not doing that. He's flipping off people in the stand.
He's got a weird body. Look at Sirianni's body. He's got a weird muscle mass, BMI complexion versus Dan Campbell.
Oh, you know what, Mike? Here's your assignment for the next show. I would like you to rate the bodies of all of the NFL head coaches, 1 to 32.
Way ahead of you.
Best body to worst body.
I do this every night as I'm falling asleep.
Okay. Good. So everybody's got that to look forward to on Monday. Mikey's head coach physique rating. All right. Okay. I'm gonna try to not to do too much Sirianni bashing, because I actually do have some positive things to say. So let's talk then about the Eagles and Thursday night football. But first, before we do that, we have to throw this up right here of Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship walking into Thursday night football with perhaps the coolest t-shirts that I have ever seen. Here we go. Can you see that? Exciting whites.
Oh, yeah.
exciting whites, 2 white DBs rolling in, playing in the NFL, former extinct species, a white DB, and these dudes are actually playing fantastic. And these are just some of the coolest shirts that I've seen. What do you guys think? Should we get some of these?
This is like bringing back woolly mammoths, right? This like these guys coming out of nowhere and doing what they did. I think I can't remember if it was Blankenship, but I think he was the one who got an interception last night too. Yeah. Great play coming over top and snagging that. I mean, Cooper was in position as well on that same throw, but he didn't make the pick. I just find it hilarious because this looks like you and Mikey walking into the Unicorns locker room at some point. Just got to slap your faces on this, and it's the exact same.
Hey, we need it. Whoever's our graphics guy, can you get on that and put me and Mikey's faces right there? The exciting whites of the Schwäbisch Hall Unicorns 2022 season. So these guys, they actually played well. Yeah, Blankenship had a great pick. Cooper DeJean's been, like really impressive. He had kind of this controversial pass interference call last night, but getting to the game, obviously Eagles end up pulling away at the end and winning 26-18. Neither quarterback really played that great. And I think that this was a little exposing a little bit of the Commanders. In the last show, dude, we talked about how are the Commanders potentially on fraud alert, and we looked at the teams that they had beaten. And now here the Eagles are turning into a heavyweight juggernaut here in the middle of the season. A lot of people talking about them being a deep playoff contender right now, and they really look like it. But what did you take away from this from the Commanders side, and do you still feel the Jaden Daniels hype?
Look, I know on Wednesday we talked about this. We did the redraft, and I was waffling back and forth between Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, and ultimately push comes to shove, I was like, I'll take Daniels at the last second. Shame on me. I said, hey, there's a moment that he may have a lapse just solely due to the fact that he's a rookie, still learning the ropes, doing it really well, but it's just going to happen. It's natural. I think last night was a little bit of that coming into play. And yes, Hurts didn't have a great performance either, but that's the crazy difference between those two. That's a crazy difference between those two. Lord.
You're like Elon Musk with the memes now.
Thank you. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Go ahead. What were you saying?
But I think this is like outside of Jaden Daniels. He had a poor game, but he's allowed to have one, right, as a rookie. I think this is more. This whole thing is more damning toward the New York Giants and losing Saquon Barkley or letting him go. That was the total outcome of this, because the way Saquon played, I mean, he had 146 rushing yards, 2 tuds with 52 passing yards to boot. I mean, this guy is just doing it, especially when Hurts isn't doing it. Like that's what makes them so formidable now, is that they have that 1-2 punch in the backfield. If one's failing and not connecting with, say, Devonta Smith or anybody else on the field, we saw a couple errant throws by Hurts this past game. But dude, they have a great offensive line that could get Saquon the ball, and the quad father just churns it out week in and week out.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And I was actually, reading a little bit about like the Eagles season and because like they started off pretty poorly. I think they were 2-2 or 2-3 at the beginning of the season. Not great. They had a bye week. And a few of the offensive linemen, this was like in an ESPN article, apparently Lane Johnson, I can't remember, 2 of the other starting offensive linemen came into Sirianni's offense and sat down with him and said, hey, we have to lean into the run more. And in the beginning of the season, they were asking Jalen Hurts to throw a little bit too much. They were not leaning on the run. They've got a fantastic offensive line, and now they have a fantastic offensive line plus Saquon Barkley, who's having one of his best years so far. He's in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year. Looked great last night. So to Sirianni's credit, this is why I was going to say I don't want to bash on him too much, because according to this article, Sirianni totally listened to that. Didn't really have like an ego, like, hey, no, we're going to run this my way. He listened to the offensive linemen, and since the bye week, since that meeting, it's relayed in the statistics. Now they're running the ball. They were running the ball like 29, 30 times a game. They're now running the ball 40 times a game. Jalen Hurts is throwing the ball about 8 to 10 times less per game, but he's been more accurate with these. So to Sirianni's credit, because, when you look at some of his behavior, jiving with fans, you might think that he's got a big ego and is not going to listen to his players there. But he did. Yeah. And looking back at Saquon, you're touching on him. He's doing great, but Saquon also, he's getting robbed a little bit. Check this out. This is what happened. Saquon has 9 touches that have ended at the 1 yard line this year. Okay. That is 9 touchdowns that he is essentially getting robbed of, and Hurts is getting to push them all in right here. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh yeah,
8,
the old tush push.
8 of those. So
That's a lot of incentive bonuses gone.
I know. I was going to say, Mikey,
Yeah.
as a running back, how upset would you be by this?
Furious. I want all the attention. I want the glory. Let me run it in. Let me do my little celebration. But here's the thing. Actually, when I played, this is what set me apart. I never cared about touchdowns. All I cared about was cool runs. And so if I had a cool run, I got down to the 1. I go, oh, that's cool. And then I get out. I didn't care.
That's another thing that bothered me about your playing. I wanted you to score touchdowns so we could do our celebrations. You refused to score touchdowns. You go down to the 1, and then you won't celebrate with me. 2 things.
All I cared about was cool runs. That would look cool on tape. That's the only reason I played the game.
We'll pull up some of your cool runs.
You didn't want to punch it in. Did you ever do the tap out? The tap out after doing those cool runs?
No, but I would just jog off. Yeah, that's enough.
The Anthony Richardson tap out.
Oh, man.
Check out this meme right here. How's this, huh?
Nick, you're doing so great with these memes.
I am the meme lord.
right.
I'm here. I have NFL memes. So yeah, Saquon looked good last night. I mean, you said he had the 2 touchdowns, and he just looks, I don't know, man. He's playing like peak football right now. And just what you said, the Eagles fans were chanting at that game, "Thank you, Giants." Just like, yo, who is the chairman of the Giants? Mara. Like we talked about it, how he was talking about, hey, if we are unable to make this deal and keep Saquon here, I am going to have a very hard time sleeping at night. And this has been absolutely worst case scenario for the Giants and for Mara.
Brutal. He's definitely not sleeping much this year, especially each weekend that Saquon does something like this, which seems to be almost every weekend.
Yeah.
Now circling back to our conversation at the top with coaches, right?
Yep.
I wonder, and I said it's less of a damning game on Jaden than it was, say, on the Giants, but like, I wonder, what are you guys' thoughts on Mr. Cliff Kingsbury? Because there seems to be a rolling trend of he just destroys it in the first half of seasons, and then historically the back end of the seasons for everywhere he's been, Texas Tech, Arizona, now here, the wheels just seem to fall off, or defensive coordinators seem to figure it out. I don't know which it is, but I wonder, like, do you think this was more Jaden's sort of lapse or rookie backstep, or was it Cliff Kingsbury? Because he had 32 pass attempts.
Yeah.
24 of them were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Like, those are check downs.
Dude.
What's going on?
Yeah, that is a great question, dude, because Kingsbury's kind of notorious for that. Man, I don't know. I kind of think we were getting a little bit too hyped up on Jaden Daniels early. Like we said, it's super impressive for an NFL quarterback to win games, super impressive for a rookie to win games at all. But these wins weren't against premier teams, really. And I do think that, I don't want to call it like beginner's luck, but just kind of a nice start with one of the, great offensive minds here, and people in the second half of the season are having the ability to figure it out. I mean, and then we also have here, let me pull this up, the passing chart, because you said 24 out of his 32 passes were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Jamie, pull that up.
Jamie, pull that up. We need our own Jamie. I'm over here. I'm young Jamie. There we go. Check that passing chart out. Yeah. Just like you said, dude, all check downs. And then the one pass that he threw downfield got intercepted by Blankenship. I mean, I don't know, dude, you as a quarterback, when you're resorting to these, is the scheme not working? Is this that he just doesn't feel confident throwing the ball down the field at this point? Like, from a quarterback perspective, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it could be many different things going on at the same time, right? So what's interesting is, like, he could be defensive coordinators catching on to Cliff Kingsbury and showing sort of pressures or anything like that Jaden hasn't seen. That could definitely be a huge factor here. It seems like a lot of this stuff we're just the secondary was locking down anything that was put out there by the Commanders. And right now, I think it's like a rookie just doing what he can in the moment. And a lot of that happens to be who's the most open person. It's going to be check downs, people coming out of the backfield, anything like that. And if you're in that situation where you're still learning the ropes of decision making and real time at NFL speeds, like this is just it's not a huge deviation from what the norm is for rookies, right? That's why I say it's not as damning for Jaden, because he's still, I mean, that's a great completion percentage. Like,
right.
He's not costing his team. He's giving them a chance to make a play. He's putting balls in the hands of playmakers. So it's difficult to say there. I think what ultimately happened was Cliff probably took the L on this, and the defensive coordinator from the Eagles, I'm blanking on his name, but he definitely took the W in all of this, in shutting down any sort of Fangio. Thank you. Any of those big plays. So it's interesting to see.
Dude, that's a great point. Honestly, we cannot overlook the fact that the Eagles defense is the top 2 defense statistically right now. I think they're allowing the second least amount of yards and like first or second least amount of points, maybe the third amount of points in the NFL right now. So like Eagles are really hitting stride after their bye week, kind of both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of weird to say, because every NFL team is essentially like the all-stars of previous great college teams, and then they're all-stars of starters and rosters, right? But like, what's funny is that the Eagles seem to have been just cherry-picking a lot of Georgia defensive linemen over the past few years, and it's just that D-line is stacked, dude. It is absolutely stacked. So like, them just putting pressure on Jaden actually does matter. And I think I saw there was a meme, I'm forgetting who the Georgia lineman was, but he picked up and body slammed Jaden in college. It was last year. And he was just like, you're just lucky I didn't do that this time, when he had him right on his toes.
Yeah, dude, that's another thing. Jaden Daniels was under pressure like this game. He really was under pressure. And I don't want to like overly criticize this passing chart right here and checking down right here, because I listen to some people talk about kind of this is what Mahomes has been doing for a while. Well, when he lost some of his deep threat wide receivers, when he lost Tyreek Hill, and they've had some of their wide receiver woes, Mahomes, it has been a sign of maturity to not force certain things and be fine and happy with the checkdowns here. I'm not saying that this is the exact same thing with Jaden Daniels, but I don't think that we need to put all of this negativity on Jaden Daniels for having a check down here. Just because you said it, man. I mean, it's still a good completion percentage, and this is a rookie quarterback playing against one of the best teams in the NFL. So don't want to freak out too much, but maybe a little Cinderella story of the Commanders. Maybe they still get themselves into the playoffs, but if they're in the playoffs, to me, they're going to be a one and done team, which is still a huge accomplishment. Still a huge accomplishment. So like, still hats off to Jaden Daniels. But speaking of the Chiefs, we got to move on to some more Chiefs news. Unfortunate situation. One of our favorite kickers in the NFL, Harrison Butker, is going to be out. He's been placed on IR for he'll be on IR, so he'll be out for 3 to 4 weeks. Harrison Butker, obviously one of the best kickers in the NFL. I think he's 4th or 5th in the NFL right now with his field goals made this year. Scott, thoughts on this? How bad is this going to be for the Chiefs?
Yeah, this is gonna hurt him a lot, because I feel like Harrison, over the past few years, ever since he's been in the league, he's only improved each and every year. And he's been the not so secret weapon of the Kansas City Chiefs and of Mahomes. Like, Mahomes, he's going to be a Mount Rushmore quarterback, right? I've said that before. Okay. He's going to be potential, all that kind of stuff. But you can only become that when you have guys around you that really help you win and win in the big games, right? And Harrison has proven that out. He's hit massive big time field goals, won Super Bowls with that leg for the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, Mahomes and the offense got them into position in which he could actually perform at the highest level. But he's one of the best to do it, at least in the past 4 or 5 years. He's just been so consistent and always hitting it in the big times. Talk about a clutch guy. He's got that gene in him. So it's going to be interesting to see how Kansas City and Andy Reid sort of deal with this loss, because he's such an amazing tool in their toolkit. that ultimately wins them games. And this year, when Pat's not playing well, like he's bailed them out a lot with points.
I mean, dude, like these kickers keep getting injured. This guy, Moody from the Niners, what is going on? How did they get hurt?
You know what, Mike?
Ow, I planted wrong. It's like Phyllis in the office during the volleyball game. Ow, I twisted my ankle. What? No one was even around you.
Mike, that is actually a great point. A lot of kicker injuries this year, huh? Kickers getting to become a very physical. They're doing like Oklahomas in practice. He's got like a but check this out, Scott. You were saying, or I was just going to say, because the Chiefs are winning a lot of close games. They won by 2 points last week on a blocked field goal against the Broncos. Check this out right here. This graphic is a what if. Okay, it's a big what if. It is what if every one possession NFL game this year had the opposite result. So say, for example, the Chiefs, they won by 2 last week. What if instead they lost by 2? Any sort of one possession games. The Kansas City Chiefs, their record would be 2-7 if they lost all their one possession games so far this year. Those are a lot of games where Harrison Butker, their field goal kicker, is making a massive, massive difference. And so I think, it's easy to kind of laugh when a kicker gets injured, like, oh, it's the kicker. Does it really matter? But for the Chiefs this year, when so many of their games have been one possession games, this is actually a really big deal. What are your thoughts on this this chart right here?
I mean, this is just corroborating exactly what my gut reaction was there. I mean, the fact that it is one score games, like you can't rule out the kickers here and being lethal. And like we even saw it last weekend when Debo went after his kicking unit in the long snapper. Like them missing field goals put them in jeopardy of losing games, and that's real stuff. That's real dollars. That's real potential. Like especially when NFL careers of the majority of players is so short. You don't know what's going to happen from 1 week to the next in terms of injury and what that longevity will be like. Like this matters. Kickers do matter, even though they may be weirdos to many of the
they're nice teammates. Guys.
Weirdo.
You know what I'm talking about, though. You know what I'm talking about.
They're more of acquaintances.
Yes.
Scott was the guy that was pushing kickers into the lockers and doing their lunch money.
No. Scott, dude, looking at this chart, switching from kickers, like what's really interesting is the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, they're sitting at 6-4, right?
Yep.
Not bad if with that switch. Granted, they'd probably like to be better,
right.
But what's wild is they're the most penalized team in the NFL by a wide margin. I think they're at 80 this season, and the next closest is like 62 maybe. I'm blanking on that number, but it's a wide margin. So imagine if they got their ship right and just have that, and they'd be in the middle of the NFL. Like think of how many other wins they would be, or they would have.
Dude.
Wait, you said the Bengals have the most?
No. The Ravens, they are the most penalized team. That's interesting because like the Ravens are obviously they're known for being a super hard-nosed, aggressive football team. And like, maybe that penalties come with that, but their defense is not that hard-nosed and great this year. The Ravens defense is their weak point this year. Like pretty brutal.
It's very weird to say that too.
Dude, it's super weird to say this. The Ravens defense sucks. And also it's interesting that they're such a penalized team with such a veteran, experienced coach with John Harbaugh. Cause that's to me, to be so penalized like that is a little bit of a sign of an immature team. Don't you think?
Yeah. Or undisciplined. I would say.
Undisciplined. There you go. Okay.
Which only speaks to exactly what you're talking about,
right.
with Harbaugh having been there at the helm for so long. And we were talking about it the other day, him, Tomlin, his brother, Jim, like they bring a different sort of continuity that people can expect from that organization and that franchise because they've been doing it so well and for so long. So it's surprising. Now I wouldn't say it's uncorrectable, or incorrectable. I don't know what that
Did
one
you go to Yale?
It's I don't think I've ever used that word before. It just came into my mind.
Anti-correctable. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But it's one of those situations where like they got to get their ship right if they really want to make a push for the Super Bowl and get Lamar that ring, because you can't continue to win. They're definitely they're definitely taking out loans here with these W's that they're getting, and having that many penalties on the field. It's just not sustainable or tenable.
Dude, that is a great way to put it. They're taking out loans. This actually just makes it all the more impressive what Lamar and that offense with him and Derrick Henry are able to do. They're winning, like, in spite of their terrible defense, which is giving up one of the highest in the points in the NFL. And then these penalties right here. The other team that is very interesting on this chart, Cincinnati Bengals. We talked about last week, Joe Burrow, how he's actually playing, fantastically in some of these games. And if they had won all of their one possession games, if those had all been flipped, they would be 8-2. They'd be at the top of the NFL. It just shows how close that margin is, man. Like, the Bengals are actually pretty solid. They're just not able to get it done in those close games.
The Cincinnati Bengals are the best, worst team of all time right now. And Joe Burrow, just like, it's got to be a struggle. I've talked about it when he lost last weekend, his face and his eyes, you could see that the competitor in him was on fire, and, hopefully they can right the ship. And I think they will. I mean, with a guy like Burrow and how he's been performing as of late, I think they're going to get it right and start taking in some of these W's, these one possession games that they haven't been able to in the first half.
It's just it's fascinating to see how the results would look different if some of these one possession games were flipped. Mike, what were you going to say?
Yeah. It's a game of inches. This is all these like little hypothetical charts. These are this is what football is. Like, it's all super slim differences, okay, in the games that can project this far. At Oregon State, we were so bad. We were 1-11. We'd come in after every game, and our coaches would bring out these printed sheets of what our record would have been if we did things right. And like every week, it was just like trying to count all these moral victories. And it was like, what are you doing? This is what football is. It is a game of inches. That's not something like a variable you can discredit.
If we scored more touchdowns, we would be national champions. Okay. All right. One more NFL story. We got to touch on this because it's hilarious. Yeah. Remember last episode when I mispronounced the backup quarterback name for the Bears? Bajan. What is it? I already forgot. I'm stuck pronouncing it the European way. How do you say it?
Badgin.
Okay, there we go. I really got to get out of Europe so I can talk again. So apparently, like last week, we were talking about how there are rumors going around that the veterans on the Chicago Bears wanted Caleb Williams benched and Badgett to come in and be the starter before they wanted Shane Waldron to be fired. We talked about that last week. A lot of shows talked about that, or this week, a lot of shows talked about that. Turns out there's some other rumors flying around that these rumors stemmed from Badgett's dad making these up and planting these rumors like Varys and Littlefinger from Game of Thrones as a political move to get people chirping and talking. There's little whispers here that, hey, the Bears want Badgett. They say the players at practice say Badgett is actually better. And we bought it, dude. We took it. And we don't know. This is unsubstantiated. This is also just a rumor, but it's a very interesting rumor. Let's assume for right now that this is true because that's really entertaining. Scott, thoughts on this?
This is, oh my gosh, this is such like high school stuff. It's crazy. Like, dude, the dad who had the backup quarterback kid in high school just trying to torpedo the starter's like name and likeness so that his son could get burned. Like, I feel like that's cooking right here. It's so absurd, dude.
This is a great dad. That's a great dad. Spreading rumors, trying to control
just helping out his son.
This is the thing, like, I think football more than any sport has the most like psychotic dads involved. And like,
yeah.
And like willing to just do dirty things to get their sons on the field.
Hey,
no shame. Football dads have no shame, more so than like basketball dads or anything else.
No, we didn't really play baseball in our family, Scott. I don't know if you guys did, but aren't baseball dads really, really bad? Aren't baseball dads bad?
They're bad, but in a different way, right? So like baseball, growing up in the Midwest, baseball was definitely a part of culture,
Yes.
right? Every kid did it. It was the lowest hanging fruit of sports for kids to participate in and feel like a part of a team. So that was like
A lot of standing around for me.
yeah. That's ultimately why I stopped playing. I could not stand practices, dude. But anyway, yeah, it was part of the culture of the Midwest, and look, it's a beautiful game, right? It's something that there's a reason why it's sustained throughout time, and it became America's sport. Whether or not that's the case today, who knows? And it's arguable, but
it's not America's sport; it's America's pastime.
Hey. Thank you for the correction. There we go.
Words.
I got community notes.
I know history.
Community notes. Good job, Mike.
Community notes from real time. Dude, it's like travel baseball dads can be psycho, especially when they are the coach and their kid happens to be on the team. It's like, is your kid really the one that should be at shortstop or, pitching right now? Like there's definitely somebody sitting on the bench who may not be like as technically sound at the plate or something like that, but they're not getting burned because it's your son and stuff. So like, yeah, there's definitely an element there. But I think as football has become more and more prominent, I think Mikey is right. I think there's starting to be more of the psycho dad mentality, because it's like they see their kid as a reflection of them as a man in some way, shape, or form on the physical football field. And
see,
it's like
I could have done that.
Yeah, that's what they
Let's look at Dion.
Scott, this is okay. Scott, you're a dad. This is so you got a lot of responsibilities. You got to do this type of stuff when your children are old enough to play sports. Okay, you got to put your kid at quarterback, all that stuff. I remember 7th grade. Okay, when we were playing, you were in 8th grade, Scott. I was in 7th grade. Beaverton Knights. My dad, our dad, Mikey. You know our dad, Mike, from our house.
Phil?
Our dad. Yeah. He was the coach. And I grew up, this is my first year playing football. I was like obsessed with running back. I wanted to be the running back so badly. Scott was our quarterback, and they were announcing the starters, and they came down to running back, and they put me at wide receiver. Dad put me at wide receiver, and I remember being so mad at him for not letting me be the running back, and I had to play wide receiver instead. But Scott, actually, that's probably why we're friends now, because then we had to develop that wide receiver quarterback connection. And so that's why we have this podcast now, because our dad
that was the foundation.
That was the foundation. What, Mike?
You wanted to play running back?
Yeah, that was my dream. That was my dream.
We never talked about this.
You were like 4 years old.
Dream? That was my dream.
That was my dream. And I never, ever.
You got to live it though, Mike. You got to live your dream.
You got to live your dream. I'm living vicarious. That's why, Mike, I get so mad at you for not celebrating.
I lived about 72% of my dream.
Well, we got some more time. That's why I got so upset about you not celebrating your touchdowns, okay? Because I was trying to live vicariously through you as a running back. So that's just, but no.
Yeah, look, Nick,
what?
I couldn't be more appreciative of your pop, like for putting you there, because you were the only one that could catch the football.
True.
And I was like, good Lord, what are we dealing with here?
Yeah. We ended up having some good connections, Scott. We did all right until I broke my hand, and then I tried to catch with a cast. Still could a little bit though. So yeah, sometimes funny things with dad in sports. But dude, if this turns out to be true, absolutely hilarious. Also hilarious that the media bought this. This just goes to show how easy it is to kind of spread and plant stories, because so many people were talking about this week, dude.
Oh yeah. I thought you were gonna say the word misinformation.
Disinformation.
We should spread some stories about this
malinformation.
We should get some conspiracies and some stories surrounding our podcast. Get them out to the media.
Yeah. Mike, tell Mike, Dad's home right now. Tell Dad to tell the news that this is the #1 podcast in America. Okay? Tell him that.
Hello, news. This is Phil.
#1. All right, so there we go. That's what we got in NFL. All right, we got to talk a little college ball, because this is absolutely wild. All right, like, we all play college football. Great. Mikey, you were there at kind of the tail end of when NIL stuff started to pop in, and people and players were starting to get paid. Look at this. 5-star recruit declines $10.5 million offer to go play for Michigan. This dude, Bryce Underwood, he's 17 years old, and he just declined $10.5 million to go play at Michigan. This is absolutely wild. We're in full-blown Wild West of NIL, and this is kind of the epitome of that right now. Scott, what do you think about this?
Like when I read this, I thought it was a joke. Somebody just popping out one of those Onion articles or the Babylon Bee or something like that. But the fact that this is real is mind blowing. You got to imagine that in order for him to stay and decline that offer, that LSU is probably upping it. Like a match probably wouldn't even do it unless he was slated to be starter, right? So like LSU's probably paying even more. I'd say probably 11, 12 or something like that. But the fact that we're talking about guys who have yet to step on the field and perform are getting these contracts is insanity. I mean, good for them. They're getting paid. And like they seemingly have the skill set to warrant this payment, or at least get organizations to pay them this stuff or offer it to them. But like at the same time, dude, what are we doing?
I think we're all in favor of players being able to get paid, right? You're in favor of that?
Yeah. Generally, yes.
Generally. But I think that, and we said this, man, that like we just open the floodgates and we have now no regulation at all. It's so chaotic. There's no, I worry that this is just going to crash and burn in some way, because we just have, I mean, there's no precedent for this. We have no idea how this is going to end. Is this just going to keep going? Are college players going to start getting, like that's an NFL salary. That's on average $2.5 million right there. That's like a solid running back salary per year. Is this just going to turn into a freestyle version of the NFL?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've mentioned before that I think football specifically, those sports are probably going to break off from the university and somehow, some way, shape, or form, probably just license the name of the university to keep that continuity for fans' sake and everything like that. And I think ultimately what's going to happen is the players are going to just become athletes and they're no longer going to be students per se, especially if they're going to be paid like this. And I think that also alleviates universities from having to pay them as full-time salaried or benefited employees, so on and so forth. So I think that's ultimately what's going to come down the pipe. And these universities, or these teams rather, are going to be functioning as, say, more along the lines of soccer clubs. And kind of being one-offs that develop players and then ultimately get them to the NFL. Because these payments are nuts, and it's definitely something that the universities will not be able to pay. That's only going to help increase the cost of university for regular students and so on and so forth. Granted, they are making a lot of money for the university. Let's not deny that. Yeah. But even so, the Wild West, the fact that the payment doesn't come through the university, it comes through collectives that are third parties that gather this money and then pay the players. It's just, there's also no protection for them. Like they're in the Wild West. They don't have agents who are necessarily going through the same rigorous process that the NFL requires for the agents who represent their players to go through. So it's so strange, because on both sides, it's just something feels off here and something feels wrong, but there's also, it's moving so quickly that we can't seem to get some rules set in place, which I hate to say, we need regulation, but we need parameters. We need parameters in order to work freely within. Otherwise, it's just boom, 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 everywhere.
I mean, dude, and the thing is, like, we talked about how great the tradition of college football is in building a program. Now it's just going to come down. There's going to be 10 programs that have all the money, like these big money programs that are just going to be able to buy all of the players. And it's just going to create a huge divide of the haves and the have-nots, or the cans and the can-nots, with these college football programs. And I'm a little bit worried how this is going. Like, look at this right here. This is interesting. This is a generous gesture here, but just sticking with it. Cam Ward of Miami, he's in the Heisman conversation. He's playing great. He gifted his entire offensive line personalized chains worth $2.1 million. Now, don't get me wrong. I am in massive favor of quarterbacks taking out their offensive linemen and taking care of their offensive linemen, getting them gifts, what have you.
Yeah.
$2.1 million on chains, dude. Like, if you're going to spend all the money on them, give them something give them some Apple stock or something. Like, this is going to feel silly in a couple of years. And also, I looked it up. Like, Cam Ward, if he's got 2.1 million to dish out right now, his NIL money must be 10 or 15 million. His NIL money
Easy.
according to On3, which is like the leading source for this, says it's 2.1. That means that he spent all of his NIL money this year on chains for his offensive linemen. What do you think?
That's a great gesture. $4,300 for a dummy.
No,
that's really, he's going all in. He got all in and on his offensive line and hoping for a good return.
There better not be another sack this entire year.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, think about this. First off, we all know linemen. We all know that they're different. They're a different bunch, but they are also like the energy of the team and kind of make that whole bus move, right? So like, they're just different dudes. I wonder if some of those guys received that necklace and we're just looking at it and be like, yeah, why couldn't
I'm not gonna wear this?
You couldn't have given me you could have given me
I can't fit
Bitcoin.
this around my neck.
Like, give me Bitcoin like OBJ got with the Rams, and now it's just boom through the roof. Like, do something like that,
dude. Yeah, exactly. Hey, speaking of which, yeah, look at this. OBJ he was one of the other, a couple players had taken their salary in Bitcoin, and OBJ tweeted this. So who said taking my Rams salary in Bitcoin was dumb again? 92,000 it hit right there. And what year was he with the Rams? That was 22, was it? Or 21?
It was a Super Bowl winning. Yeah, it was a Super Bowl winning year. So he tore his ACL, I think, at the beginning in the first half. Remember, he was on pace to, like, he was balling out that game. He was on pace to win MVP of the game and then tore his ACL. So dude, like, talk about just being validated in your decision here, even though it took a couple of years to get here. But
because I'm looking at the Bitcoin chart right now. This is now a Bitcoin podcast. The Bitcoin chart. It was between 35,000 and 50,000 per Bitcoin at that time, and so he essentially doubled his salary right there. But he is not the only player that's done this. A couple other players have done this and taken their. I can't remember. Somebody on the Carolina Panthers did the same thing. A big offensive lineman.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, kudos to them. You're obviously playing in the market, which is risk reward, high risk or high reward game, but like, it's paid off. Clearly.
There you go. We'll see how that continues.
I had a Bitcoin.
What?
Once.
Where is it?
I did. I had a full one when it was at like 1,200, and I had to sell it to pay for school like an idiot.
Oh my gosh, Mike!
That's the problem.
That's why he was so quiet when we were talking about this. It pains him deeply.
That hurts me.
Oh, Mike, you had a Bitcoin. All right, you know what?
Well, what are you gonna do? There's always next year.
There's always next year when it's 150,000. Let's stop talking about Bitcoin here. Let's do this. Let's make you forget. We'll talk about something a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun, because we have to touch on this touchdown celebrations. We were talking this week about touchdown celebrations. The Trump dance celebrations getting hot right now. A lot of players are doing that. But our European brethren, they've also got some interesting celebrations. This is from the European League of Football. This is the league that I work with here in Europe. This is the Vienna Vikings at the championship game, and they've got this what is this, Dragon Ball Z? It's actually a really cool edit right there. And
that is a really sweet
isn't that pretty sweet? The touchdown celebrations in Europe are interesting. They're a lot of times they are like longer. They're almost like skits. Like, guys really plan them out, and they take a long time. They take a long time to develop. Like, this one right here is a quick one. Mike, do you remember any of the touchdown celebrations playing here in Europe?
It's more of a interpretive dance, if you will. Yeah, I feel like American celebrations are quick and to the point. You know, and then it's the European mentality. There's no rush, there's no urgency in life or anything. They have all this time to kill, this leisure, and it leaks into the celebrations. Don't worry about it. I got plenty of time. I'm on vacation.
Absolutely correct. Just a leisurely, lack of urgency, sort of meandering celebration. So the European celebrations, they're interesting, but they are long developing, and you've got to rehearse them. You have to rehearse them all week. So this is what we got right here.
They must have been like just heavily influenced by Shakespearean plays over the years. That's part of it, and probably also why they love the game of soccer. Just slow, methodical builds.
Yeah, there we go. So this is the Vienna Vikings from that's Scott. You ever watch any ELF football? We got to get you on some ELF football, dude.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I've watched when you've been on broadcasts and everything. I need to watch more, especially when there's no NFL on or college ball on. That's on me. That's on me as an American viewer. But I need to find that void, especially when football season's done.
Put some respect on the European. Yeah, it's actually the perfect time because it's basically spring to summer and ends right as the NFL season starts right here. Man, I would have killed to score a touchdown and be able to celebrate like that. Right, Mike? Just would have killed for it.
I can't imagine what your celebration would be. Something with a camera?
One time I did score a touchdown here. I had a pick six, 90 yards. Or it was a scoop and score, 90 yards. And
he doesn't even remember.
I blacked out, got in the end zone. I had no idea. I just turned around and just hugged all the guys coming to celebrate. I felt very uncomfortable and out of place. I had no idea what to do.
He was weeping.
Was crying. Yeah. So the other thing is a lot of the European guys. So there's a lot of these elongated, slow building celebrations. Every wide receiver here just does the gritty. They just go straight Justin Jefferson, and they all do the gritty, all of them. And so they're copying American culture on the celebrations when you're a wide receiver there. So that's what we got out there in Europe. Let's touch a little, lastly, on LeBron. A little bit of basketball. He's in, what is he in? His 22nd year. And dude, I know this conversation is like beating a dead horse here, the LeBron versus MJ conversation. But I did hear a really compelling point today that MJ was on top of the world for what was 9 seasons, and he was absolutely incredible and the best of the best. But the longevity of LeBron is just so unmatched. He's in 22 seasons in the NBA, and still, I think last night or 2 nights ago, he had 35 points, and still on any given night can be the best player on the court. Scott, I know you're an MJ guy. Do you give any credit or any credence to this argument because of the longevity from LeBron?
Yeah, longevity is impressive. I mean, I laud, Brady for longevity, Aaron Rodgers to a certain degree as well. And even Peyton when he was falling apart when he went to the Broncos and did what he did. You got to give a guy his flowers when they're due. And LeBron doing what he's done over the past 2 decades is unmatched. And he's gone in and year out and done it. I mean, in terms of the Mount Rushmore conversation, he's clearly on it. Like, you cannot deny it, regardless of what you think of him politically or personally or anything along those lines. Like, I'm not the biggest LeBron fan. I will always take MJ in that argument just solely due to his NBA Finals record, just his innate killer mentality when it came to competition. It just oozed out, and that's something that I personally am attracted to. And while I know LeBron has it, because you can't perform at the level that he has for 22 years without having that in your blood, just the way he's brought it out, and then also just been more public than, say, MJ was. I like guys who just take care of business and don't have to talk about it or be the center of attention. MJ was just a different sort of animal. And yeah, you can make the argument that he played a different game of basketball, right? He played in an era where it was more ground and pound. I think at the beginning of his career, they didn't even have the 3-point line or just installed it. So it wasn't really a huge part of the game then, as it has been in the recent years. But give LeBron his flowers. The one thing I don't like about this, and I actually didn't really love this about, say, Derek Jeter or the end of Kobe's career, was the fact that it was like this long farewell tour. Like, that's one of the things I really, regardless of how bad this hurts, like Detroit Lions fans, I actually admire Barry Sanders walking off the way he did. I admire the way that Megatron kind of did the same. When they knew that their time was done, they didn't need the praise or adulation from anybody else. They made a personal decision for what was best for them, their family, and moved forward with it, and then went off into civilian life. But I feel like this, and giving a range of 1 to 2 years, is kind of just like, come on, man. Like, you've already been in the news with Bronny and everything going on there. It's just like, and we know you're going to get your flowers. You're going to be like highly praised when you do finally announce it. And I honestly think it would be better for his career if he did it out of the blue. In terms of just the mystique of him. But now it's just going to be this long drawn out thing that I feel like we've already started 2 years ago because he's that old.
Dude, that is it. And this, we touched on this. This is, I'm 100% with you on that. I'm always get out early. That's, like I said, that's why I retired from football. Like after Mikey and I, we won in 2022, we won the championship. Boom, I retired. Just got out early because I didn't want to, overstay your welcome. Not to say he's not or that he's overstaying his welcome, because he's still obviously putting up insane stats like he did here last night. But there really is something to that, to the mystique and kind of leaving. This is the one thing that I learned in film school. Leave the audience wanting a little bit more. Get out a little bit early. And I do think that is something like, and I criticize that about, MJ going to the Wizards and Brett Favre with his additional stops. Granted, he did play. Brett Favre actually played pretty damn well in Minnesota.
Really well, yeah.
But I'm not a fan of elongated goodbyes. The Alfie, Mikey, this is like the 3-step goodbye at the Alfieri house at like a holiday. We have to say goodbye 3 different times at 3 different parts of the house. You know this, Mike?
It initiates in the family room. Okay, that's stage one. And then you go to the hallway. Okay, step 2. Conversation's dying off. You're getting a lot of, all right, so, and then you milk that to the doorway with the final exit.
Yeah, but not the final exit.
And
sometimes the final exit is sometimes not even the final exit, because some couple stragglers will actually go out into the driveways, but in the car in the little bit of a driveway. So it's a 3 to 4 part goodbye. And this is sort of
what final step linger.
Yeah,
They'll do.
And this is
we need to take more athletes need to take the George Costanza approach.
Just I'm out
in the middle of a meeting, tell a joke, laugh. Well, that's it. I'm out of here.
There you go. That's how we should end this podcast. Well, I'm out. No, but
I had a good point. On longevity.
Okay, here we go.
What do you think about this? What do you think about this? I can't think of words today.
Thing.
Okay. I had a good note on longevity.
Okay.
This is the thought process.
Here we go.
When you go to see a movie, okay, you don't leave a movie going, man, that was such a long movie. Like praising it just because it was long.
Wow, Mike.
You gonna go see a short pack-a-punch, maybe Michael Bay. I don't know, that's bad. That's bad. But
Mikey,
something that's really exciting and leaves you wanting more.
You
okay?
racked your brain for the most prestigious premier filmmaker you could, and you said Michael Bay.
That's as high as I can dream.
Transformers 1 was sick. That was actually really cool. Shia LaBeouf was great in that.
Cool. But the point of what I'm saying is longevity isn't everything.
That is actually a very good point. Because you know what? The Irishman, a little bit too long, 3.5 hours.
Too long.
Good movie, but
you're like, all right, that's enough.
It's a little bit. It's enough, right, Scott?
And I gotta say it for the Irish blood in me right now. It's like that couldn't be more of a difference right there. Using the moniker of Irishman and not utilizing the Irish exit. That should have been a 3-minute movie.
Oh, what a missed opportunity!
That movie should have been an email.
Oh, there we have it. So we gotta work on those goodbyes. But Mike, before we say goodbye, we'd like to offer you a platform to share your heart on your marvelous minute. I know you're really, really excited about the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson boxing match. So without further ado, I know everyone's been waiting.
A lot of money on this fight.
Here we go, Mike.
Okay, here's the title of my segment today. I'm taking a little inspiration from Michael Scott. Why do we as a society hate old people so much?
Why do we as a society hate old people so much?
You know who doesn't participate in ageism is Jake Paul. So we got Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, who's 58. Jake Paul's 27. They're fighting tonight. Big deal. All over the news. Everyone's covered it. People think this isn't going to be a fair fight because Mike's 58. Okay? But he's actually a scarier opponent now because of his delusion. He doesn't even think his age is a factor. That's scary. He is so out of his mind. He's taken so many mushrooms. He's so far removed from reality that age doesn't matter to him. In a prime example of his lack of ageism and his ability to treat everybody equally, no matter their age, is in his interview with that poor little girl, okay? This little girl had the chance to interview Mike Tyson. Okay, you see her right here. She got so excited, she asked her a simple, easy lob question. What is she, 10 years old? She goes, Mike, what do you think about your legacy? And Mike Tyson goes off on this little girl talking about legacy is meaningless. Everything we do is meaningless. Life is going to turn to dust. All of these great, mature life perspectives that he throws on this poor little girl.
Well, in your return to the ring for this fight, you are setting a monumental opportunity for kids my age to see the legend Mike Tyson in the ring for the first time. So after such a successful career, what type of legacy would you like to leave behind when it's all said and done?
Well, I don't know. I don't believe in the word legacy. I just think that's another word for ego. Legacy doesn't mean nothing. That's just some word everybody grabbed onto. Someone said that word and everyone grabbed on the word, so now it's used every 5 seconds. It means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just passing through. I'm going to die, and it's going to be over. Who cares about legacy after that? What a big ego. So I'm going to die. I want people to think that I'm this, I'm great. No, we're nothing. We're just dead. We're dust. We're absolutely nothing. Our legacy is nothing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
It just goes to show you that Mike, age is just a number to Mike, and it's beautiful. It's inspirational. Treats everybody the same. Here's the other thing. Old people are so susceptible to internet scammers. And Jake Paul is the Paul brothers are the ultimate internet scammers. Okay? They're crypto, they're YouTube, they're taking advantage of young kid audiences. And he's just going to keep going up in age for people that'll fall for his tricks.
There we go. Perfect, Mike. Perfect.
Good job. Yeah,
there it
I love
is.
how you touch. I love how you touch on Mike Tyson's ability to go. Thus spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche on this little girl. Just so realistic.
Yes.
Yeah, that poor little girl.
Whew.
Traumatized by interviewing Mike Tyson, just leaving there in confusion and despair. On a real note, Scott, what do you think? Who's going to win that? Who's going to win that fight? Like, is that real? Are these real?
Ah, man, it's really hard because Jake Paul is a great promoter of himself,
Yes.
obviously with his YouTube and everything like that, his success along with his brother and everything. So he's been kind of like forged in that world to where sometimes it's just performative, and he's done a really good job so far in his fights. Granted, he's a legit fighter by all accounts. Like he's actually shown some promise and some skill and ability. And many of the fight analysts say the same thing. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the difference is it's interesting that Mikey brings that up. Like the fact that Mike does not see his age as a barrier is kind of a dark horse mentality that I think Jake may be a little surprised with. So who knows? I don't want to see Mike lose just because it's like, I don't want Jake Paul to have that over him, but like, I don't know. I think youth may win out here. Too many punches to the head at 58 is not a good thing.
Dude, yeah. Here he is. Here's the weigh-in. Dude, Mike Tyson is jacked at 58. Like this dude still has the power. Like if he lands a punch, I mean, obviously youth plays to the advantage of Jake Paul moving around and stuff, but like watching Mike Tyson train, actually, like he's still moving pretty quickly and pretty powerfully. So if he's able to land a punch, and he slapped Jake Paul at the weigh-in here. See, I always wonder if those if those slaps are staged, like if they plan that out just to get guys like us talking about it now on the podcast. So do you think that's real?
I think there's an element of it. I think there could be like a heads up. This may occur. So like we can gin up some pay-per-view sort of buys and all that kind of stuff. So there's an element of that where I'm not 100% sold on it, but also it's Mike Tyson. And like, dude, once he gets into fight mode, he's spoken about this too. He's like, he never really got back into fighting when he easily could have physically, because he realized that like his mental state was not proper, because he would go into psycho mode and not be able to break himself out until the fight was done. And so I think there's an element where this may be real, because he seems to be in that mode, especially when he's talking to the little girl like this.
Dude, that's true, man.
So poor
Actually,
little girl.
You know what? I'm actually not sure if like Mike Tyson is able to like coordinate like plans like this with his opponent to make this any bit of a stage thing. Like he is like, when you listen to interviews from him, man, he is like out there. So I think you actually might be right that he is for real just going in murder mentality. Like, this is a fight just like when he would fight 25 years ago. And this isn't just some performance for him because the dude is out of his mind.
He's especially when he locks in. It's just nuts. And I wouldn't want to be in close quarters with him.
I will say that I am a little bit impressed with what Jake Paul has been doing. Like, obviously those boxing matches started off as a joke, like with just other YouTubers, and it was silly. It was all just this promotional thing. But he has since then, like, become a full-time professional boxer. Like, this is what he does now. He doesn't really do YouTube. He doesn't do much other media stuff aside from promoting his boxing. And he takes it seriously, and he is trying to get more and more serious and legitimate opponents because, like, he gets criticized for fighting former NBA players, but and former MMA guys who weren't strikers, who were just wrestlers. So he kind of sets himself up for success. And obviously here you're fighting a 58-year-old man, but still is Mike Tyson. So I'm actually, as much as I don't want to, like, I want to not care about this, I'm going to be checking this. Like, it'll be probably when I'm asleep here on German time, but I'm going to be checking this first thing in the morning to see the highlights and see how this fight went.
Oh yeah. Look, I may be a sucker. I might end up watching this.
You gonna buy it? Oh, it's on Netflix, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. I don't know if it's a pay-per-view on Netflix, but it's definitely on Netflix.
All right. So we see. We got that this weekend. Good stuff. All right. Should we do an Irish exit? And everybody just, that's it.
See you later.
All right, guys. See you on Monday. Everybody, see you on Monday. Have a great weekend. Watch some ball. See you then.